Mics are on, cameras on. Aloha, folks. Welcome.
Are we ready?
Can you let us know if you can hear us online? Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us, hopefully. Okay. Thanks, Kira. All right, we have 2 minutes till we start.
Okay.
So we can give people some more time.
Oh my gosh, he's in town 2 months in a row. Ooh, nice to see you. Nice to see you.
A few extra meetings I could squeeze in.
Oh, that's very thoughtful of you. That is an old fashioned Japanese plantation bento box. Yeah.
I just decided to pack it this morning, and my wife was like, "You think a kakake to all?" I was like, "Well, I could spend $20 or $30 on lunch, or I could save that for a couple more cigars."
Good choice.
Good
choice. Good choice. Good choice. Good choice. Good choice. You better make sure nobody takes that. That is like a collector's item.
I've been using it for a couple years now.
Oh, yeah?
But then some of the staff have been able to locate some too. So some days we're in the lunchroom and we do true cow where
Yeah.
in the middle.
My grandmother was from plantation, and they would always talk about, everybody just, putting all their tins and everybody just eating. That's like,
It's a precursor to the mixed plate.
You're probably right.
All right, it is 1 o'clock. If you want to call the meeting to order.
Let's go. All right, we're gonna call the meeting to order. Aloha mai kako. My name is Dawn Chang, and I'm a co-chair of the Hawaii Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission. This is August 10th, 2023 meeting of the commission, and it is 1:02. So with that, I do want to announce that we are holding this meeting as a hybrid meeting. Some of us are in person in the Kalani Moku building boardroom in Honolulu, and we're also holding this meeting remotely via Zoom. Do we do YouTube too?
Yes, we do.
And then it can be watched on YouTube. So with that, we're going to move very quickly through this agenda. So I'm going to do roll call, and to kind of facilitate that, if you all don't mind, I'm going to call out, and if you're here, please say here or I, and if not, we'll just, because we're looking if we've got a quorum. Okay, Deal in our chair here, co-chair OPSD. Here. Okay, Chair Senate.
No.
Excuse, okay. Chair Senate Excuse. House Environmental Protection.
Should be coming, but maybe late.
Okay. Chairperson HTA. Okay. Director DOT. Director Department of Health, a representative. Yes, I know. I always appreciate you are here. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Chairperson of the Department of Education or representative. Okay. Director, City and County DPP.
Here, designate.
Thank you. That's 2 meetings in a row, right?
Yes.
I know. At the end, we're all gonna get, I tell you, we're gonna get brownie pins for coming. Okay, Director of Maui Department of Planning. No brownie button for them.
They have other things.
No, I greatly apologize. That was totally insensitive on my part. Okay. Director, Hawaii Department of Planning.
Aloha, I'm designee for Zindo today, April Serpernat.
Thank you. Director of Kauai Department of Planning. In person, thank you. Chairperson of Department of Ag. CEO, Office of Hawaiian Affairs or designee. Chairperson, Department of Hawaiian Homelands or designee.
Aloha.
Thank you, Katie. Adjutant General. I thought I saw.
I think David's here.
Yes, David Lopez, Haim is here in.
Thank you very much, David. Manager, Coastal Zone Management.
I believe she'll be joining us by Zoom.
Okay. And then Director of DBED, Mark Lick.
I don't see him.
Okay,
But I do see that Jeremy Koki is here from DOE.
okay. Thank you. Oh, then I see Justine, he probably must have just joined us. Do we actually, we may even have a quorum.
I think we
I
do.
think we've got a quorum.
Morris is
Oh,
not the designee.
Yeah, and
but-
Lowen,
But yeah.
Representative Lowen is
Yeah.
here. I know.
So one.
Morris
two,
Otta, you need to get appointed the designee for DOT.
Sorry, I asked about that, but but I still want to participate, so I'm here.
Oh,
We do have a quorum.
very good.
And if I can ask all of the designees and commissioners to have your cameras on for the duration of the meeting.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
And thank you all of you who are on Zoom and who are here in attendance, actually because you want to be here. Thank you very much. So with that, the first action item is item 2, the June 22nd, 2023 meeting minutes. I hope you had a chance to review them. They were circulated. Any comments, questions, or do I have a
I have a
motion?
simple
Okay.
change on
Yes.
my spelling of my name. There's second down from the right, there's 2 L's, Noelle. So only my second meeting,
Oh,
so
I
that's
see,
fine.
I see.
Thank you.
Sorry, Noel.
No worries.
I also have a change under the member updates, letter C. I reported under Roman numeral number 1 that we actually completed a shoreline erosion management plan for the homesteads along the South Molokai shoreline.
Okay. That's a very important clarification. The Molokai residents will be very appreciative of that. Thank you. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments, corrections? With that being said, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Motion approved.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
A second.
Thank you very much. The motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes of June 22nd, 2023. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Very good. The motion passes. The
Just
next,
to make a note, Mark Glick has also joined.
oh, okay. Welcome, Mark. Good to see you.
Done.
Thank you for being here.
Sure, thank you. Sorry I'm late.
No, you're here. That's the most important thing. Thank you so much. Okay. Next item on our agenda is item 3, commission member updates. Well, first, Representative Lowen, do you have anything you want to update us on?
Sorry, not right now, and I'm on my not in the best situation to talk a lot, so I'm kind of listening in and here for quorum.
Okay, thank you so very much. Appreciate that you joined us for quorum. Does anybody else have any updates? Yes.
Chair, the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development has been working with our sister state agency, the Hawaii Community Development Authority, to implement Act 221, which amends the Hawaii Community Development Authority's requirements for the Kaka'ako and Kawailoa districts to have any developments are now going to be required to provide on the impacts of climate change, sea level rise, and climate resilient development in the design and siting of buildings for which they are applying for a development permit. So this is limited to the community development districts that HCDA oversees for zoning purposes, but I think it does match what the counties are doing. In either their SMA permits or their other planning ordinances. So what we're seeing is that incorporation of the concerns that future development be more resilient and adapted to projected climate change. And of course, we're strongly in support of that.
Yeah, thank you for that update.
Then I won't be making any updates for CZM because Justine is here and she will be doing that under the agenda item 7, I believe. Yes,
Does
thank you,
any-
Chair.
No, thank you. Does anybody else have any updates? Yes. Go ahead. April.
Aloha. Yes, from Hawaii County. We're proud to say that our climate action plan has been completed and was adopted last week by County Council. So we're very excited about that. Also, our general plan update will be incorporating throughout the document as sort of fundamental grounding elements of climate change, sustainable living, and hazard mitigation. We are still working on our shoreline setback regulations to be more objective in addressing site-specific situations and also scientific data. Along with that, and sort of in tandem with the setback project, we're also just got under contract for a consultant to start looking at our flood and erosion control codes, to update those codes to be consistent with the shoreline regulations that we're developing.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay.
Oh, yes, I have an update for Honolulu. Yep.
Yes.
So yesterday, the city council passed the updated building energy conservation code. So that addresses energy efficiency and construction cost savings, market leadership and innovation, and mitigating increasing temperatures and heat risks in new buildings. The city has also initiated its processes for updating the climate action plan. And I think Ben reported out on that last meeting that received a $1 million EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Act. The interagency One Water panel is working on a coordinated infrastructure framework action plan. So that is in the consultant selection process right now. And the group is also going to be sharing out on that process at the HCPO annual planning conference coming up in September. The Mapuna Puna Kalihikai area drainage action plan is progressing towards possible flood mitigation and climate adaptation measures to address rainfall and sea level rise flooding in that industrial area. So we'll have more on that in future meetings. And then just quickly, the last few, we kicked off the Waikiki area adaptation plan. That's going to be led by Tetra Tech as the consultant. And that's going to be looking through a One Water lens at adaptation, potential adaptation CIP projects in Waikiki. And also the primary urban center development plan is going to be transmitted to Planning Commission in September. And we have our hearing date for October 4th. And this commission previously commented on that plan. And that has quite a bit of new content on sea level rise, coastal hazards. It has a chapter on healthy communities. And then lastly, the East Honolulu Watershed Management Plan, the draft was just released. That's the BWS-led plan that was just released for public comment, which is open until September 24th. And that's available on the BWS website.
Wow, you guys are busy.
We're busy.
That's good news. Thank you so much for. Anybody else have anybody on Zoom?
Can I just note, we also have the DOT representative, Melissa, has joined us. And
Great.
apologies to Melissa, I sent her a defunct link address, so not her fault for being late.
Okay. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here. Anybody else on Zoom have any updates? I don't see any.
Co-chairs, I just had a brief update.
Yes. Go ahead, Mark.
Sure. I wanted to say that the Energy Office continues its collaboration with the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute in supporting the Energy Transition Initiative Partnership Program that has, I know one of the key adaptation measures the commission supports is resiliency hubs. And cohort 2 has the Hau'ula project that it continues to support, and just approved cohort 3 project to take on the next stage of the Molokai planning efforts, which I know will have resilient microgrids as part of that. So we're excited to be supporting that effort, and hopefully that'll, result in some tangible improvements that can create greater resiliency in the future.
That's good to hear. Thank you so much, Mark. Any other announcements? Dee, Lenore, we do have one announcement that I'm co-chair of the Hawaii Drought Council with Director Hurd. We are going to convene, I think it's been several years since the Hawaii Drought Council met. So we're going to have a meeting on August the 3rd. I think we're trying to be proactive, recognizing that we are expecting a prolonged drought due to El Nino. So we're reconvening, and I guess the fires on Maui and Hawaii Island just heighten the necessity for addressing drought. So I'll have something to report back at our next meeting. Okay, with no other updates, I'm going to move on to item 4, update on the EPA award and EPA site visit. Leah?
Yes. Hello, let me share my screen. The appropriate thing. Yeah, things are chugging along. As you folks know, we've been awarded $3 million for developing a priority climate action plan and a comprehensive climate action plan. I'm realizing, here we go. The priority climate action plan will be due in March. And that's really our pathway into applying for a pot of $4.6 billion for implementation funds. While these are both mitigation plans, I think we're going to really take advantage of our capacity to work on the comprehensive climate action plan after the priority climate action plan's finished, because we have that 2 years to work on that. That will be due in the summer of 2025. And I think we're going to take advantage of the fact that we're going to be doing some pretty extensive outreach and really make this comprehensive by including adaptation and resiliency as part of that, because I just don't think you can look at things from one side of mitigation. You really have to look at that adaptation and resiliency piece in there too. So we are going to take that a step further than is required by the EPA and incorporate adaptation and resiliency in there. This is a timeline that Dante here put together. So we're kind of in this August timeframe. We've received our award, and now we are scrambling to hire contractors, hire staff, and work with all of you to identify our priority actions, identify barriers, any workforce issues, and how we can partner with other federal funding and other projects that are already underway, so we can make sure that we're leveraging resources as much as possible. So the priority climate action plan, just to go into a little bit more detail, has all of these requirements. The ones in blue, we kind of already have done, which is great, right? We already have a statewide greenhouse gas inventory or reduction targets. Actually, the quantified greenhouse gas reduction measure shouldn't be in blue, but we have our emission projections. And so everything in green plus the quantified greenhouse gas reduction measures are what we have to do. So there's quite a laundry list of things, but it's also quite exciting because it's doing a lot of things that we haven't had time or capacity to do, such as looking at low income and disadvantaged communities and how all the projects will impact them for the, hopefully for benefit them, or, if they have any negative impacts. And then just, general overall benefit analysis on the projects. looking at, how that interacts with like our natural and cultural resources. And then also, the ability to leverage, as I mentioned before, this funding with other federal funds, state funds, private funding, and how we can really, kick it up a notch so that we can be a little bit more proactive in our climate actions. So where we're at, we did an RFP for a contractor for the climate action plan. We got 8 proposals. It was really exciting. They were all really great. With the assistance of staff from the energy office, mahalo Mark for lending them to me. We selected 4 to request some 4 priority offers to do best and final offers, which will be due August 25th, I think. And then we'll be able to contract and get started. We're also, going to be recruiting these positions. I just got an update today that we're just waiting on. We're contracting this out to Hawai'i Sea Grant. And that's largely because we wanted to make sure that we're paying these positions a good living wage. And that was where we could recruit quickly. And also they had that flexibility in being able to pay higher wages than some other places. So we just got an update that it's on the dean's desk waiting for signatures so we can start recruiting. So hopefully we'll get some notification out to you folks in the next couple of days that that's happening. And then just to add on to this, so as part of our award, we're doing 2 sub awards. One is to Hawai'i Sea Grant, and one is to County of Hawaii to do some outreach work. So those sub-grants are at our AG's office. I think we're pretty close to getting those done. But once we get them involved, we'll be able to kind of get some more work going. So a lot of things in motion and a lot of me being a pest pushing buttons. Let's go. Again, thanks to Dante here, we have our website up and live. It talks about a little bit of details about the climate action plans, the timelines, also links to the other climate action plan initiatives, such as the decarbonization strategy that HSCO is developing, and the climate action plans that the city and county of Honolulu are developing within the same thing. We should probably add in what other counties are doing too, because you folks are doing a lot of work too. So I just had that thought, and we will do that. Dante's making a note. Mahalo. So yeah, so we have these 3 plans. We're also, with the assistance of Joe here, developing an outreach work plan. So that's just to make sure that as we go through the process of developing these plans, we're all kind of coordinated in that messaging. So the who, what, where. We're really going to be targeting these overburdened communities, and including our Native Hawaiian communities. It's obviously climate change impacts everybody, but we really want to make sure that those that have really less chance of being heard and having a voice, because it's harder for them to join community meetings or, participate, have an opportunity to really participate and voice their concerns. The what is just the coordinated messaging. How are we communicating this? I know there's the PCAP, the CCAP, the decarb strategy. We really want to consolidate that all. So we're just talking about, climate change, and also thinking about, do we want to talk about it in the context of mitigation and adaptation, or do we want to talk about it in the context of health, as we'll be hearing later, cost of living, resiliency, those types of concepts that people can really connect with. And then also the where, we really want to go to where people are. We don't want to, have everyone come to the Beal in our boardroom to have a hearing on things. We want to be able to go out and into communities and really connect with folks and, be able to talk story with them where they're at. Our technical working groups, we have successfully had 1 meeting of each of the technical working groups. We have consolidated some of them. I think aviation was separated into some alternative fuels and electrification. We realized that, everyone who's working on aviation decarbonization is probably in the same group. So we've combined those. Materials management and landfill, also kind of the same thing. So we've combined those. And the next, we're still having some discussions within some of these. We've had multiple meetings. Some we've realized, we need to take a step back, do a little bit more research, put some things together, and then meet back with the groups. And then some were thinking, we really need to start combining these groups because we really wanted these siloed conversations so that we can really kind of hone in on what the issues are. But we're realizing, there are certain things that we just need to kind of take a step back for. So, the main one that I can think of right now is looking at biofuels because, that's going to impact our ground transportation, our aviation transportation, as well as our farming, ranching, and food systems. So we're going to be bringing all those folks together to have those conversations. And then I'll also say that almost every single one of our conversations, transportation came into the conversation. So it was pretty much widespread. Transportation touches every single one of these. So that's something that we'll really be able to dig into a little bit more as well. Just to remind folks of the review structure. So the technical working groups will feed into our larger climate pollution reduction grant review team. I'm fairly certain I've sent a message and asked anyone who wanted to participate to be part of it. If you would like to be a part of it or anyone from your teams to be on this review team, please let me know and we can add you in there. We meet bi-weekly. And then as we get, a little bit further on things, we'll come back to the commission and report out to you folks and give you folks an opportunity to review, drafts of things as we come along with them. And this will all be guided by the PCAP contractor and the program specialist that we'll be hiring, and of course myself. And that's it. So any questions from folks?
Anybody in the room have any questions of Leah? Anybody in Zoom have any questions? I'm sure we'll be getting more updates as you proceed along, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next item on our agenda is projections of severe weather due to climate change. And I believe we have a.
Yeah, he just came in and grabbed his parking pass,
Oh,
so
okay.
he might be still doing that. So I don't know if we want to skip ahead and come back to it.
Sure. Why don't we'll move on to, this is agenda item number 6, impacts of climate change on health in Hawaii. Leah?
Yeah, and we have James here, I think. Or
I'm going to
Joanna?
start,
Yeah,
and then
okay.
I'll pass it off to James. So I didn't give any DOH updates since you were getting them all here on number 6. And Leah's putting up our slides for us. And as she's getting those slides ready, I just want to thank everyone for giving us a chance to talk today. My name's Diana Felton. I'm the Division Chief of the Department of Health's Communicable Disease and Public Health Nursing Division. I'm also an emergency physician and medical toxicologist, and I've been working on climate and health issues for a little while here in Hawaii and working hard to expand our capacity at the Department of Health on this particular narrow issue of climate change. Today is an especially hard day to talk about a heavy topic, particularly one that is, related to climate change and disasters, and to add to any grief and anxiety that people are already experiencing, given what's happening on Maui and Hawaii Island. But this topic is extremely relevant to the current events and the latest news. And we really, I think it exemplifies why we really need to be doing this work. So this wonderful graphic we have was created by James McCallan, who's here with me today, who's our Department of Health Climate and Health Coordinator, brand new position, new program, which we'll talk a little bit about in a bit. But this is sort of our version of a Hawaii specific outline about trying to emphasize really the Hawaii specific impacts that climate change are going to have on people's health and well-being. It is based off a California Department of Health graphic that we adapted for Hawaii, and I think is a little overwhelming, but we're going to talk about each of it in detail. This is going to be a really quick overview of some of the health impacts expected in Hawaii, but bear with me, and we definitely will have time and space to discuss further as needed. So next slide, please. So to get started right off the bat, I'll talk a little bit about air pollution and increasing allergens. Increased air pollution is likely with the impacts of climate change, and it'll lead to worsening, cardiovascular respiratory disease. Of particular concern is the models that we see predicting decreasing trade winds, as our trade winds are generally responsible for diluting and blowing out our man-made air pollution in Hawaii, as well as VOG. So, the concerns there that respiratory illnesses, cardiovascular illnesses related to air pollution will increase. Next slide. Extreme heat. This is, a really hot topic the last couple of weeks in the mainland. And is generally something we don't think about as much as a problem in Hawaii because our temperatures don't get to those really wild extremes that we see on the mainland. But the more we're learning, the more even moderate increases in temperatures are going to be impacting heat-related illness. We're working on a project this summer trying to get more data around this topic to really try to understand how heat and temperatures rising and decreased trade winds are contributing to heat-related illness. And then there's also sort of these accessory impacts from extreme heat that have been sort of documented in other places, which, we don't have any data on in Hawaii, but are something to think about. And that includes increased violent crimes, problems for kids learning at school, and other mental health impacts. And of course, outdoor workers are probably at the highest risk for this. So next slide. For drought, our drought czar over here can talk a little bit about it, but certainly drought, as we see our changes in rainfall patterns occurring throughout the islands, drought already occurring, and the impacts that will have on our drinking water supply, on the ag supply. It impacts pollutants in water, air quality, waterborne diseases, all sorts of things, and of course raises the risk of wildfire as well. So next slide. Speaking of wildfire, I don't know that we need to go into this in detail. Until this last week, we really had a real lack of experience with this in Hawaii, particularly when you're talking about injuries and fatalities. But certainly the events of the last few days show us we are not immune to this. I've given this a talk of this nature many, many times. I usually don't speak very long on wildfire, thinking that that has not been one of our bigger risks in Hawaii, but that clearly is not the case. So, this interplays with drought, this interplays with air quality issues, and then of course, mental health impacts, fatalities, injuries, and such. We can go ahead to the next slide. The next two slides are sort of a big topic that are a little hard to put into clear words, but the idea of environmental degradation and what that means for where people live and how people live. We're already seeing what we're calling climate migration. We used to call it climate refugees, but I think climate migration is sort of a better terminology, but people moving from homes and places where it's no longer hospitable for them to, sustain their life. So they're migrating, and a lot of people from the Pacific are already coming to Hawaii, and we are likely to see more. Of course, any large-scale migration leads to civil conflicts of all different types. And then the degradation of our local environment will impact our cultural ties to the marine ecosystems, to the Aina, and impact our local agriculture and tourism economy as well. The next slide. This is sort of piggybacks on that idea, but as living conditions degrade, as we perhaps receive more people than we have the resources to care, to properly accommodate, get exacerbation of social vulnerabilities, problems with health equity and inequities. And, of course, a lot of these impacts we're talking about with climate change, we know are going to be felt more significantly by vulnerable communities, and the health aspects of that is really an example. The healthcare systems are going to be strained, and the economy as well. Next slide. This is a topic I find particularly interesting, the idea of what's going to happen with vector-borne diseases in Hawaii. This is really a big one that could impact not only health and morbidity and mortality, but also tourism and mental health and a lot of other aspects. But we already currently endemically have the mosquito that carries the top 3 viruses here: dengue, chikungunya, and Zika. We experienced weird dengue outbreaks. People remember the last one was in 2015, 2016. But the disease itself is not endemic here. It's brought in, and then can establish. As the habitat for these mosquitoes change, will we have more of that particular type of mosquito, and then more travel, more intermixing, and the diseases could, come with it and establish a stronghold. And then the big question is, will the Anopheles mosquito that carries malaria establish itself in Hawaii and create a malaria risk? Nobody really knows. There's not been enough research and data to understand if that will happen, but mosquitoes were brought to Hawaii in the 1800s, and there's well-documented information about that, and really no reason to think that we couldn't have additional mosquitoes establishing a hold here and creating, risks for these other illnesses. So next slide. Impacts on our food system, I think, have been discussed a fair bit, but real risks of food insecurity, increasing food prices, and damaging our sort of already fragile import supply chain, and what that means for chronic health, malnutrition, obesity, and diabetes. Next slide. Again, I'm going really fast through all this, and I'm trying not to make it too sad, but it's hard to even talk about. Of course, severe weather and floods, I think this is an area where we are much more familiar with, the risk particularly of hurricanes and floods. But the risks are here, both acute risks like injury and drowning, and then some of the longer term risks like disruption of essential services, people getting the healthcare they may need, fungi and mold in homes as they need to be cleaned up, and then issues with cesspools, overflows and exposures, and also chemical contamination. Our water quality is also at risk from climate change, and how that can impact health with harmful algal blooms that we've been fortunate to avoid so far in Hawaii, but other waterborne diseases as well, salinity changes, and risks to our drinking water supply. And then lastly, and certainly not least, the mental health impacts, really overlay this whole issue. And I'm sure many of you don't need an explanation of that. I know I've been just devastated by the recent events unfolding, but there's so many layers to the mental health impacts of climate change, in addition to the stress and the sadness around disasters. There's also sort of the ongoing worry and eco grief and eco anxiety and just concern about what's happening in the future, what might happen. So really, really important topic, and certainly an area where we don't have the resources right now to deal with what's coming, particularly in the youth population. So, as I talk about all these things, it's depressing, it's difficult to talk about, but one of the things I like to say about this is, in a lot of these areas, we have time to make change and prepare and prevent some of this morbidity and mortality. And so we're really working hard at Department of Health to really try to stand up a system and work with partners to really try to learn how we can prevent some of these things from happening or from becoming as bad as they can. So I'm going to turn it over now to James McCallan, who's here with me to talk about what the Department of Health is doing, and also to generally enlist the assistance of many of you, as he'll talk about in a little bit. So James, go ahead.
And thank you everyone for inviting me.
Do you want to come up to yeah, come on up.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us to come speak today. As Diana mentioned, I recently got brought on to the Department of Health to help strengthen this program. This position is actually the direct result of back in 2015 and 2016, the Climate Change and Health Working Group. They recommended direct personnel to help address these issues. And so it's been about 3 months since I've joined and we've been working on this. And I can go in a little bit about some of the progress we've made. The first project is a vulnerability assessment. The CDC has developed a framework for health departments to help them build up these programs and really address these concerns. It's called the BREEZE framework. It stands for Building Resilience Against Climate Effects. And essentially it starts off with like a vulnerability assessment, statewide understanding of risks, and then taking that information and working with like epidemiologists and really predicting the future burden of disease as it's affected by changing climate. And then ultimately you can develop strategies and programs and direct our resources towards that. So right now we're still working on the statewide vulnerability assessment, and it's basically taking everything that Diana briefly spoke about today and really understanding how Hawaii is uniquely impacted in all this. And it's really going to take a lot of help from content experts in all of this. And it's going to be a dynamic living document, and really just as things changes, we saw how quickly the situation is going to unfold. We'll update that there. So we'll continue to update you guys as this assessment keeps going. The next update is we recently launched an updated climate change and health portal within the Department of Health's website. And if you go to that page, it actually has an informational briefing that Diana had done back in December to the legislature, and it really goes more into depth on all this information. So I really recommend checking that out if you're curious about all of this. The website also has some great information. We have a whole frequently asked questions section to get people engaged with this who may be approaching this topic for the first time. There's just more resources provided from the CDC and other health institutions to really dive into this. There's also resources for healthcare providers and how they can engage with their patients and talking about how their health is going to be impacted by climate change and really kind of the front lines in this space. So yeah, the link's up there. I really recommend people check it out and reach out to us with any feedback or suggestions of how we can make it more helpful for everyone. And then the last update is back in June, we kicked off what we're currently calling a climate change and health week. And it's bringing state, county, UH researchers, community partners, healthcare providers, med students, really kind of everyone who's been maybe working in this space, siloed, just getting them all together, breaking down those silos and hoping to just develop a robust network. Because as you see, the connections there's endless connections on this, so we can really get everyone together and we'll really support all of this work. The next meeting, the second meeting is August 23rd, and yeah, we can go to the next slide, please. Our emails are there, so if you're interested, please reach out. I can send you the information. If there's anyone else you think may be interested in joining this, we really want to just bring as many people as we can to do all this work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for either Diane or James? Anybody on Zoom have any questions? You'll provide us regular updates as we go along. Thank you
Indeed.
very much.
Yeah.
Good luck. I appreciate the work that Department of Health proactively addressing some things that we don't pay enough attention to, but it's real. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other questions, I'm going to go back to item number 5, projections of severe weather due to climate change.
We have Professor Chu here, our state climatologist. Mahalo for coming in and sharing your expertise.
Thank you. And did you put that parking thing on your car?
Yeah,
You don't want to get a parking ticket.
It's a very nice one.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Nice to see you.
I think we met several times at the Hawai'i already.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm Paul Chu, affiliated with the Department of Atmospheric Sciences and also Hawaii State Climate Office in School of Ocean and Earth Science and Technology, we call it SOAS at the University of Hawaii. And I was asked to give a talk about the impact and future projections of climate change on hurricanes and drought in Hawaii. I think it's very timely, given this Hurricane Dora and its impact on Hawaii. The next one. Okay, first, let's be clear about the nomenclature of tropical cyclone. So when we say tropical cyclone, we mean it is a severe storm that occurs or formed over tropical ocean. Okay. But there are 3 types, starting from the weakest one, that's the tropical depression, and to the next strongest one, that's called tropical storm. So at this stage, the storm is given a name. There's a name like a Dora. And then we have a hurricane, which is the strongest one. And in terms of some quantitative information for tropical depression, the maximum wind speed is between 20 and 33 knots. Usually we don't pay too much attention to tropical depression. And then the next level is tropical storm. The wind speed is at least 39 miles per hour. Then if you go to higher level hurricane, the wind speed is at least 74 miles per hour. And there are 5 categories for hurricane from 1 to 5, with 5 being the strongest. And sometimes you also have heard people talking about a major hurricane, which means the category 3 to category 5 hurricane, major hurricane, which means the wind speed is at least 111 miles per hour, very powerful. Like a Dora is a category 4 hurricane. So the wind speed should be stronger than 111 miles per hour. And we all know the hurricanes bring disruptive wind and also heavy rainfall, flooding. And because of the mountainous topography in Hawaii, so we have some interactions with the mountain, hurricane interactions with mountain, so which would enhance high intensity rainfall in certain areas. And also this leads to flash flooding and also to landslide and other problems, storm surge and other problems. So this is about the impact of hurricane. Okay, next one.
Sorry.
Okay, here are just examples of some hurricanes that inflict major damage to Hawaii or were very close to Hawaii, starting from Hurricane Eva in November 1982. And the damage was something like $250 million. Okay, that was 1983 dollars. And Eva occurred when very strong 1982-83 El Nino just almost reached its maximum intensity. Usually El Nino reaches its maximum intensity in winter time. So this is very late hurricane in this is the Thanksgiving time. So people usually think hurricane season is already over. But because of this very strong El Nino, so we had hurricane Eva. And then 10 years later, we had a hurricane Niki in September 1992. And the damage was 3.1 billion. That was 1983 dollars. So it's equivalent to $6 billion in 2021. Then the third case is 2015. That was also another very strong El Nino and also very active hurricane season. So Hawaii was sandwiched by 3 category 4 hurricanes simultaneously. So that was an unprecedented phenomenon. So later on, I have a picture to show this case. And then 2018, we had a Hurricane Lan, which was a category 5 hurricane. So caused a serious scale for several days because it was very strong, category 5, and also its motion was very slow, and also was very close to all. So later on, I have the track for Hurricane Lan. And then also, brought the very strong wind, torrential rainfall to Big Island. Then Douglas, we have in July 2020, passed very close to Oahu. Next one. So this on the left shows the aftermath of Hurricane Niki in September 1992. This is for Kauai. And on the right is the one that I said before, yes, was in 2015, August 30th. You can see Hawaii, and on the left, you have a Hurricane Kilo. On the right, you have Ignacio and also Janina, all those 3 category 4 hurricanes. So that was very scary, very close to Hawaii. And the one to the left shows the hurricane track for Lan. So Lan was a category 5, the strongest hurricane with 160 miles per hour wind on August 21st. You can see that's the one marked in red, 21st. And the Lan was heading toward Oahu. Okay. But fortunately, it suddenly changed course and turned away from Oahu in the following day. But some of you may still remember the Hurricane Lan and also the anxiety we experienced because land motion was very slow and its track was really, really uncertain. So even National Weather Service had no idea which way it would be heading to. So there was a lot of scale. And on the right shows the 6-day rainfall during Hurricane Lane. We can see all major 4 islands in Hawaii, Big Island, Maui, Oahu, and Kauai. They all received lots of rainfall during Hurricane Lane. And Kauai was hit the hardest with 58 inches of rainfall during 6 days. That was a lot of rainfall, particularly on the windward side. And this year we have a tropical storm Kevin last month, right, which also brought heavy rainfall and a strong wind to the island of Hawaii. Then this week we saw the passage of Hurricane Dora to the south of Hawaii. This generated very strong gusty wind. Here I say up to 60 miles per hour, but I think in some areas the gust wind was as high as 80 miles per hour. Just this week, and also we saw the big fires and power outage for Maui. So my prayer goes to the people affected by fires on Maui. And so there's a lot of problems. Houses were burned, and also there was smoke, and a lot of other health related issues. So this strong wind basically was caused by the high pressure to the north and also low pressure from Dora. So generate very strong pressure gradient force, which drives strong wind. Then because of these mountain valleys in Hawaii, so this also plays a role because it generates some kind of thermal circulation. So you have a very strong downslope wind together with this large scale wind from the pressure gradient. And then what happened was you had down of this power line, which may set up a flame for fire. So I think so this is caused by hurricane. Although we usually think this time Dora was far away. Usually we think we are really free from hurricane. But in this case, it's very unusual that it can still generate very strong pressure gradient force. So this is there's always something we learn. Okay, then the next one, please. Okay, so previously I said that when you have El Nino, you have more hurricane activity. So this one gives an example. On the top is the hurricane tracks during El Nino years. Okay. The bottom is hurricane tracks during La Nina years. So we can see definitely we do have more hurricanes passing to the south of Hawaii during El Nino. Okay, right. So that here we also this central North Pacific defined as the region north of equator between 140 west and the equator and the date line. This is according to the Central Pacific Hurricane Center's definition. And so on average, we have a 5.5 tropical cyclones over the Central North Pacific. During El Nino years, and only 1.75 tropical cyclones during La Nina years. So in other words, the ratio is almost 3 to 1. So in other words, we have more hurricanes during El Nino years. And this is why in the last 3 years, it was La Nina years, there was almost nothing really exciting for the Central North Pacific. It was pretty quiet. Okay, next one, please. Okay, so previously I was looking this large region over Central North Pacific, but if you just zoom into Hawaii, very small area, okay, just 250 nautical miles from Honolulu. So if you draw a radius, okay, a circle, then this is much smaller region. But the study also shows that the annual mean number of tropical cyclone is much higher than the annual mean number of tropical cyclone during the non-El Nino year. And this difference is statistically significant. Right? So in other words, you can say with the confidence that during El Nino years, even for a much smaller region like Hawaii, in the vicinity of Hawaii, you still see more hurricane. Because basically we are not a hurricane-prone region. But during El Nino years, the story might be different. Okay, next one. Oh, by the way, I co-authored a book titled Climate Variability and Tropical Cyclone Activity with Dr. Murakami. He works at the NOAA Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory in New Jersey. So the book was published last year by Cambridge University Press. It's available in Amazon. So basically, in this book, we consider climate variability in relation to tropical cyclone activity, which means like shifting formation location or the frequency of occurrence. In some El Nino years, you have more tropical cyclones. In La Nina years, you have fewer tropical cyclones. And also the storm tracks, the landfall location, the intensity, and the lifespan in the Pacific and also in the Atlantic. So in the Pacific, because Pacific is a huge basin, so we divided into the Western North Pacific, Eastern North Pacific, Central North Pacific, and also South Pacific. So when we talk about the climate variability, we mean like El Nino, La Nina, some kind of radiant drilling oscillation, Pacific decadal oscillation, and others. And one chapter is devoted to projecting future tropical cyclone changes in response to greenhouse gases. Okay, next one. Okay, so this figure shows the summary of tropical cyclone future projections for a 2 degrees C global warming. I should say global anthropogenic warming. Okay, so this is from the numerical models. So they can prescribe in the future, given 2 degrees C warming from anthropogenic effect, what would happen for the tropical cyclone. So this is not my paper, some other studies. Okay. So they use the 4 metrics to define this change. Okay, basically just show the percentage change. Okay. So the first one is the total annual frequency of tropical storm. Is the pointer here?
No.
No, no pointer.
I can.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
mine.
the second one is maybe I should point out.
Here.
So the first one is the total annual frequency of tropical storm. You can see this is like 0. Okay. And the second one is the annual frequency of category 4 and 5 hurricanes. So it would be this one. Then the third one is the intensity change. The fourth metric is the rain rate. So it's a precipitation rate within 200 kilometers from the storm center. So everything here shows the percentage change. And the solid line is the median of the expected percentage change. And this bar is 90% confidence interval. So here, let's look just the Northeast Pacific, which includes which includes Hawaii. So we can see that basically there's no change for the first metric. In other words, there's no change in total annual frequency of storm in the future, given 2 degrees C warming. But there is a substantial increase of annual frequency of category 4 and 5 storm. You can see the increase is almost by 30%. And also the storm intensity gets stronger in the future by almost 8%. And for precipitation, that precipitation rate also shows substantial increase by 20% more. Okay. So in other words, hurricane will become stronger, and also you expect to see more hurricane-related rainfall for 2 degrees C warming in the future. Okay, next one, please. Okay, so this is based on the high resolution atmospheric general circulation models, okay, by Murakami. And his paper suggests there is an increase in hurricanes near Hawaii. So the panels to the left, upper left, is the observed annual mean tropical cyclone frequency. So we can see that most of the time that we have a lot of tropical cyclones occurrence in the eastern North Pacific. And this is Hawaii, right? So this is the observation. And this is based on the present day simulation from this model. So the model captures really well the location of the maxima, although the model tends to underestimate the TC frequency to the east of 125° west. And this is a simulation for the future. Future means 2075 to 2099. But this is the simulation for the present climate. This is simulation for the future climate. And basically you can see there's the east-west contrast, and also there's increase in hurricane frequencies near Hawaii. And the last one shows a difference in simulation between future and the present day climate. So we can see there's a drop
Some differences.
in this area, but there's an increase near Hawaii. So their study shows a substantial increase in the likelihood of tropical cyclone frequency near Hawaii in the future relative to the present day climate. So this is something we should be worried about, that we expect to see more and more hurricanes in the future. Okay, next one. Okay, let me shift the gear from hurricanes to the drought, because he also asked me to talk about drought. Okay, so because of time constraints, so I will go over this part more briefly. So I will use this diagram to illustrate the impact of drought. So we start with natural climate variability, like El Nino is a good example. So on the left, if you have El Nino, that in Hawaii, we do see you have a decline in precipitation. Then for the amount and also intensity, also time, then this leads to reduced runoff, reduced groundwater recharge. And on the parallel to this one is when you have El Nino, then you have a higher temperature, you have less cloud cover. So this also leads to increased evapotranspiration. So taking this together, these factors, then this leads to soil water deficiency. And then you have plant water stress and so on. And then you have this reduced stream flow, and also reduced wetland, and also change the wildlife habitat. Then eventually you have a reduced groundwater level and increased salinity, and also in coastal aquifer. So we have on the right, you have a meteorological drought starting from meteorological drought, then move to the agricultural drought, then to the hydrological drought. Okay. And at the bottom, you have ecological drought and also socio-economic drought. So basically, people talk about the 5 kinds of drought. Okay, not only, usually we think just the meteorological drought or hydrological drought, but there are also socio-economic drought and so on. Okay, next one, please. So in the past, we also studied Hawaii rainfall variations associated with El Nino, with La Nina, and also with the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. Okay. So the panel to the left top is the variations of Hawaii rainfall index, we call it HRI, during El Nino year, that's in solid block, and during La Nina, which is in hollow rectangle. Okay. So we can see for El Nino that a low rainfall starts from November, okay, and it runs through spring of next year. So, and lasting for 6 months. And this is all wet season. Right? So it means that when we have El Nino, just like now, we have a El Nino, so we expect to see low rainfall in the coming winter and also spring. So even though this is the summer, now is August. August we expect to see a little bit near normal rainfall. Even by September, we might see a little bit higher than normal rainfall. But starting from November, this kind of time frame, we expect to see 6 months of rainfall during the wet season. And the largest a negative anomaly occurs in winter and January. You can see that with two bars. And then for La Nina, and which is just the opposite of El Nino, then you can see during the same 6 months, you have an abundance of rainfall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So it's kind of different. And then the figure below shows the rainfall variations. One is when you have El Nino, but this El Nino occurred during the positive phase of the Pacific Equator oscillation. And the other one is the La Nina, which occurs during the negative phase of Pacific Equator oscillation. Because this Equator oscillation operates on a much longer time scale. And during this longer time scale, you have several El Nino. You may also have several La Nina. Okay. So you can just pick this El Nino years, which occur during the positive PDO phase, during the negative PDO phase, and so on. So we can see that the pattern is very similar to the top one, but the magnitude is almost double. For example, in January, when you look at the top one, that the rainfall anomaly was about a -0.4 in January, right, during El Nino year. But when El Nino occurred during the positive PDO phase, also in January, the rainfall anomaly becomes -0.8, so it's double. Okay, so it is the phase is the same, but the magnitude has changed. So this is quite different. And El Nino also has a bearing on wildfire in Hawaii. So this is the data I got from the DLN Division of Forestry and Wildlife from Wing Chen long time ago. I'm not sure he's still here. Okay.
I think so.
But he
No,
retired.
Wing Ching, yeah, he's
Yeah.
retired.
Retired, yeah, okay. Right. So this is the total acres burned, okay, by wildfire. So you can see that this is also during after El Nino. So you can see by spring and the summer, after the occurrence of El Nino, then you have large acres burned by wildfire. Okay, that's very clear. Right. So this is the paper that I published in International Journal of Wildland Fire. The title is "The Fire Climate Relationship and the Lonely Seasonal Wildfire Prediction for Hawaii." So this says that El Nino does have an impact on wildfire. Okay, and the metrics you will use is the total acre burn TAB. And the table below shows the summer TAB prediction. So we use the previous winter climate data and also a nonlinear regression model for 4 islands: Kauai, Oahu, Maui, and Hawaii. So here we just look at the cutoff is 75 percentile. So anything above 75 percentile of total acres burned, because this is the event, because this is a pretty large value. So for example, if you look at Oahu, that according to this data, we have six events with their value, their TAB values greater than 75 percentile value. And then this model can correctly forecast 5 out of 6 events from the previous winter. And the summer, we know here, summer is a dry season. Usually we have a very large total acre burn. So summer is the focus. Okay. So Oahu is the best, and the Kauai also is pretty good. But for Maui and for Big Island, that the success rate is 50%, because for Maui we have we have 6 large events, but only 3 of them can be predicted well. Okay, next one. Okay, so this one shows a time series of percent area of drought. Okay. The top one since year 2000. Okay. So we have 20 years of data. This data comes from Hawaii State Drought Monitor. And they use a D1, D2, D3, D4 to categorize the severity of drought from moderate drought, severe drought, extreme drought to exceptional drought. So we can see that the percent area of drought was pretty high from 2009 to 2014. Okay. And also it was pretty severe because in some years you have even D3, D4, pretty strong. And then the bottom shows on a longer time scale since 1920s. Okay. So this is based on the SPI, Standardized Precipitation Index, 12 months SPI, decade by decade. So you can see during the first 50 years, the shading shows just the blue. So which means there's no drought. Okay, but when the SPI is below 0 means that some kind of drought. Okay, so the value when SPI is less than -1 is a moderate drought. When it's less than -1.5, it's a severe drought, and then you have extreme drought. But since 1970s, we do see there's an increasing trend of drought, particularly during the last 3 decades since 1990. And particularly on the Big Island and also Eastern Maui and some part in Oahu also saw different degrees of drought, and it was pretty bad during the last 2 decades. Okay, I think this is my last slide, and I have a summary chart. So basically, climate variability modulate hurricane, okay, like El Nino. So more hurricanes near Hawaii during El Nino years, even for a smaller area like Hawaii. We do see more hurricanes during El Nino years. And also we have a higher number of intense hurricanes over Eastern Central North Pacific in the future for 2 degrees C warming. And also hurricane becomes stronger and also more hurricane rainfall in the future too. And we also show that there's a substantial increase in TC frequency near Hawaii in the future. So El Nino leads to dry winter and the spring in Hawaii, then cause more acres burned by wildfire in spring and summer, because this is time that drought in winter and spring then leads to soil water deficiency and also dried out vegetations, which provide the ingredient for wildfire. And also show the long-lead prediction of wildland fire is promising, but can be improved. And the drought became more widespread, intense in the most recent decade, particularly since during the last 2 decades, particularly over Eastern Maui and island of Hawaii, particularly on the south and the western part of the Big Island. Okay, for any questions?
Thank you very much. This is I'm normally a very optimistic person, but your findings are, I know, I'm a little dire. I mean, and if this week is anything like what we're expecting, wow. Okay, thank you. Any questions for Professor Chu?
Professor Chu, if spring and summer, next spring and summer following our current El Nino are likely to be even drier or more drought, but we're not as likely to get hurricanes in the spring. Are there other triggers for wildland fires due to that drought that we can anticipate and try to think of preventive strategies?
Well, I think that El Nino usually is a pretty good indicator for drought and also for wildland fire. So I think that as long as this El Nino signal is still there, then we should be more careful about the possibility of this drought and also wildland fire. But I think that maybe because the data I used was up to 1997, so I really like to update this kind of analysis, okay, to see if there is any continuation about this prediction, long-range prediction, and also fire climate relationship in Hawaii. I think that would be very interesting to continue this kind of study.
Yes, please go ahead. Professor Chu, your predictive correctness for the neighbor islands was significantly lower than for Oahu. What do you attribute that to?
I don't know. I think, that's a good question. I also like to know. But given we have only 22 years of data,
I see.
so maybe the sample size is a little bit small to say anything.
And the correctness of the predictions underestimates the number of tropical cyclones, right? For the neighbor islands.
Simulation. Yeah, for future simulation. Okay. Based on the high resolution.
So it's not, that model is not over predicting for the neighbor islands, it's under predicting.
Right.
Well, that's a wake up call for the neighbor islands. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Professor Chu. Really excited to see you on the agenda, and kind of why I flew over here in person. For the hurricane modeling you're talking about, you mentioned there's one with the 2 degrees Celsius warming of the increased amount of Cat 4 and Cat 5 hurricane.
Right.
And you had a number of that really caught my attention as far as a projected 20% increase in precipitation in these storms.
Yes.
Is that a 20% increase in precipitation when the hurricane's over Hawaii, or just on average is this generated out of the northeast?
This is just over the eastern North Pacific, but including Hawaii. Because in that study, they just partitioned the Pacific Basin into the western North Pacific, eastern North Pacific. So eastern North Pacific, I think that means from dateline all the way to American coast.
Is there going to be a variability in that 20%? Should that hurricane hit the islands, being that there's microclimates and the mountainous terrain of some islands?
That's a very good question. I'm pretty sure that this is just a big picture for 20%. But if you look at one particular region, smaller region, the statistics will be different. And then come to Hawaii because of this, our mountainous, topography. I think that in some area rainfall will become even higher than 20%. Some area will become less than 20%. So it's not evenly distributed. But this is the bulk number.
Yeah, and like roughly how much long, because I guess I can understand the necessity for patience and understanding that the science is just beginning to coalesce around atmospheric modeling. But how ballpark figure, like how far are we out from getting actual projections for precipitation and ravine flooding that occur with higher intense storms under climate change?
Yeah, I think that we have seen many cases in recent years. What happened in Vermont, and also in Beijing, near Beijing, most recently, and all those very heavy rainfall that occurred. And people always like to know whether this is climate change related. And I think that it might be because if why the global warming temperature becomes warmer and warmer, so we have a more water vapor evaporated from the ocean to the atmosphere. So if you have more water vapor, according to the closest Clapeyron equation, about a 6 to 7% increase for every degree C warming. So if you have a more moisture in the atmosphere, then where this moisture would go? So eventually they will fall back to the earth, to the earth's surface. So that if this moisture coupled with the storm, so storm rainfall will become more intense. So in any case, you have some storm, right? Whether you have climate change or not, you always have storm. But if you have this additional moisture, then storm can become more intense.
And is there much hydrological and hydraulic modeling going off of the atmospheric modeling that's happening? So when an atmospheric modeler comes in and says, we're going to look at, granted it's ballpark, it's not microclimates, it's for the entire region.
Yeah.
But if we have 20%, we're looking at 20% more intense storms. Are you seeing many models spun up off of that to say, okay, if we have 20% rainfall, here's what the floodwaters will look from ravine flooding. Here's what the floodwaters will look from precipitation modeling. Are we seeing much of
Yeah,
that?
I think there are some studies, but the partly more geared to the mainland US, not to Hawaii. Hawaii is very, I think it's kind of small and also it's more complicated because of this topography, complex topography. But I'm pretty sure that that can be done. And actually, I'm also thinking about, in reference to the recent Maui fire, we can also couple high resolution weather model with the fire model, so we can better understand what happened for Maui fire, because it caught everybody by surprise.
Right.
Suddenly we got such a strong wind that was unexpected, because we know there's some kind of pressure gradient between the north and the south caused by Hurricane Dora, but we didn't expect such a strong wind. And there's some kind of local effect. So there's a synoptic forcing, there's also local mesoscale interactions, so makes this wind become so strong, almost like hurricane force, 60 to 80 miles per hour. That is strong.
Dr. Chu?
Yeah.
Your long range observational one that showed increasing drought in certain parts of the Hawaii Islands, with the increase in atmospheric moisture that we're seeing with predicted with a 2% increase. I mean, not 2%, 2 cent. Anyway,
We know.
Are we still going to see the increasing drought, or are we going to start seeing those colors go back toward the increase in rainfall?
Yeah, I think that's another good question. That in the future, I think there's some studies show the projection of future rainfall variation in Hawaii, but one study suggests that dry area will become drier, the wet area become wetter. Okay, so that, but to me, this may be okay, but it was based on the water course GCM, because they needed to downscale to smaller scale to Hawaii scale, because usually we use a global climate model for projection. But global climate model has a very coarse resolution, usually something like 250 or 200 kilometers. And the Hawaii Islands are very small, like Oahu, east-west, maybe only 60, 70 kilometers. So that the global model cannot resolve what happened for Hawaii. So you have to downscale. So we use either statistical model, or we can use a dynamical model, like a high resolution dynamical model to downscale to Hawaii. Usually we can downscale to almost like 1 kilometer resolution. Then you can see that. But the problem is that if the global model people used in the past are not very good, then whatever you downscale will not be very good.
Okay.
Yeah, like a garbage in, garbage out. Okay. So that's always the issue. But I think with the currently we have this CMAP6 model, which also has some high resolution global climate model. I think that would be very attractive for downscale CMAP6 model. High resolution.
One more question.
Yes, of course, please, yes. Please.
Dr. Chu, because Hawaii's islands are in the middle of the Pacific and the ocean temperatures rise more slowly than land temperatures, as we look at predictions for increase in atmospheric heat, which of course adds to heat stress, will Hawaii always lag large continental areas in terms of air temperature?
I think that partly is yes, because that the island is very small. Basically, we are surrounded by ocean, so that people use the sea surface temperature as an indicator of what happened here. So that So because ocean has a larger heat capacity, and also the changes in thermal emission is very slow. So not like over continent or land surface temperature changes very quickly. Yeah. So our changes slower compared to land temperature. That's right. But I think we can still see some increasing trend in ocean temperature here in Hawaii. There's also, although maybe not as much as like Texas or some other areas.
Oh, no, of course, any other, I'm just wondering, for me, this is quite far beyond me, but how reliable are these predictive models when we are looking at extreme weather conditions? That are the scientific data keeping up with just, these extreme weather conditions do not seem to fit into the predictable models. It seems to be escalating. So, I mean, even the wind here, people went to bed having no idea that the next day Lahaina would be burned. So, I mean, normally, climatologists are pretty good about kind of predicting, but it seems like the weather conditions are so extreme in light of, I believe, climate change, that how reliable are the predictive models for us to be able to make good informed decisions?
Right. I think because for making predictions, you have to use past record, right, to build up, the scenario, what happened. And if past record didn't show anything like what happened now, like tomorrow is gust wind,
right?
Then there's no way that the prediction model can predict this kind of extreme event. But if something like this happened before, then maybe through the machine learning or AI, you can capture some signals, okay, and then you can make a prediction. But if nothing like that happened in the past, then I think it's almost hopeless to make a prediction.
But is scientific inquiry, or are you being able to, a lot of these older models, they were based upon kind of we couldn't input the data quick enough. But now with advanced technology, are you able to get more accurate real-time data?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that nowadays with just satellite and all those telecommunications, we can get data really quick.
Yeah.
Like yesterday's.
Right.
But then you still have to rerun your model, tune your model, because model has a lot of parameters. So you have to change the parameters. Okay. Yeah. I think we are getting better than before, but with the climate is changing in the background, so everything will be different from before. In other words, we deal with something like we call the non-stationary climate. Like in the past, climate change may be stationary. In other words, the mean, the variance, all those will be the same. But with the climate changing, so all those basic statistics are changing. The mean is no longer the same thing as before. The variability also becomes different, so that it's more complicated particularly for predicting this kind of extreme event.
Right.
Because if it didn't happen before, then there's no way that even with the best sophisticated computer, then it can predict.
So is it fair to say that the predictions, if anything, are much more on the conservative side? That we should be.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, right. That's right. Because nobody predicted this, this gusty wind. Like almost like 80 miles per hour.
Yes. That's yes.
Well, just on that line of questioning that Chair has, Professor Julie, I mean, like with that 20%, right? Like I think when we're looking at it from a land use perspective or a government agency regulatory perspective, a lot of stuff we're using, and I don't mean to put the fire in a shell because that adds so much more levels of complexity we're going to be grappling with it for the next several years. But like when looking at the flood modeling, right? Like a lot of what we have to base our regulations and our actions on, whether it's disaster response or whether it's zoning, what have you, is based off of the FEMA standards that are all based off of historical events, right?
Yeah.
All within the 100-year flood, this happens, this is an extreme event, the 100-year flood. But I think if I understand this correctly, like you guys are taking that a step further, saying the 100-year flood was this, but now with greenhouse gas emissions and the warming of the climate to 2 degrees Celsius, now we expect the precipitation within the 100-year flood to now be 20% more. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of.
Because I would just implore you guys, because I really applaud the work and it's absolutely what's necessary to take what you guys are doing and keep on refining it to the granular level.
Right.
Because if you see what the IPCC did and with the 3.2 feet and the SLUREXA models we have for sea level rise, we're able now to make adjustments to our policies and react to that in a manner that we can plan for it, whether it's, but that we at least have 70, 50 years to plan for that, right? The floods that I think you're looking at, that those we need to plan for, whether it's in the next 5 to 10 years, and understanding, okay, with that 20% increase or X factor of where the precipitation and ravine flooding is, okay, here's the new areas that will be susceptible to floods. And here's even one day hopefully getting like, and here's the depths those floods are gonna happen at. Then from an emergency response standpoint, we can say like, okay, we gotta get ready for these places that we never thought would flood before and respond to them as those storms are coming through. But even from like a land use perspective, then we can start saying, okay, here's the new flood areas. Here's where it's projected with these increases in temperature. Now we need to start, say, down zoning or changing our building design standards. So that's why I'm so excited about the work you're doing. And I really applaud you and say, keep it up and let us know when you guys.
I know. I think that some of the information may be useful for decision making, particularly for policy. Because that's the best scientific information I can find. You talk about just return period. I think that I also agree with you that in the past, after the Hurricane Iniki, that was in 1992, that caused a huge damage. So I was asked by back then it's called Hawai'i civil defense.
Oh, yes.
But now it's called
Hawai'i.
So to undertake a study to estimate the time period of hurricanes in the vicinity of Hawaii. So back then, we came up with some statistics like 137 years for Hurricane Iniki to occur again.
And that
was so based on that information, I think insurance company feel very comfortable. So because after Iniki, some company they withdraw, they don't want to cover hurricane park, and then there was the creation of this Hawaii hurricane relief fund. And but I think that because back then we have a very few hurricane data. And also the tool was relatively simple, but now we have almost 25 more years of data, and now we have more new technology. I think we needed to really update this kind of analysis to get a new estimate of return period of hurricane. Yeah, I think that. But I cannot find the funding support for that. Okay. I know how you know that.
Some people don't want to know the answer.
Yeah. So I was very frustrated. I thought this is very useful information for the state.
Yes.
Yeah. But no agency come forward and say, okay, I'm going to support, I'm going to fund your study.
Yeah, sometimes you don't want to know what the answer is. But it does. I am in no way diminishing what's happening on Maui, but we are looking at the harbor. The harbor was totally destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're looking at rebuilding that. Now, clearly, we're going to have to rebuild that in a very different, I shouldn't say clearly, but I think while we may have been looking at, climate, sea level rise, providing us certain kinds of predictions over a period, I think we're going to have to increase that and you know, exponentially, that's gonna happen much sooner than later. So I think, yeah, yeah, you're right, land use planning, decision-making, that we have to ask the harder questions, you know, rather than planning for a 100-year flood. I mean, you have to predict that this is going to happen much sooner than that.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah, because
in
you know, since the
adaptation.
EQ, you know, we have seen many more strong hurricanes. You know,
Yes.
Remember that the dispatch showed that.
Yes.
Like 2015, we had 2018 there and Douglas, and now we have Hurricane Dora and also many others.
I know,
And I think that really we needed to update this kind of
Mhm.
analysis.
we do.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a 100-year flood. There will be 10-year floods.
Yeah, the 100-year flood. In the past, it could be 30-year flood.
I know. Oh, yeah, no, no, I mean, this has been extremely helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time
Yeah.
and being here to answer a question. Very timely in light of what happened this week. So,
Yes.
yeah, but we are recognizing drought it is inevitable. And what are we doing to address that? So I think before you came in, we are going to reconvene the Drought Council
Okay.
as to begin to start trying to proactively prepare. It may mean a lot more conservation efforts, infrastructures, I mean, changing more of our wastewater treatment facilities and really pushing reuse versus, you know, so, I mean, decision makings will have to change in light of the more information that we get.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. And last, any more questions? Anybody on Zoom have any questions for Professor Chu? Fascinating. Okay, thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you. I should ask you, do you have any questions for us?
So is this the Hawaii Climate?
An Adaptation Commission.
Is this a new?
Hawaii, it's the Hawaii Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission.
We gotta call it
It
something
was
else.
established in 2017.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
so we've been convening since then.
I see.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time I've been invited to.
You probably, yes,
to join this meeting.
No.
Yeah.
So this is new to me. Okay.
No, we appreciate all of the scientific information. I mean, we realize we have to, you know, it's everything science-based, so
Yeah.
the more you can do your work,
Yeah.
the better, more we can make better
I
decisions.
think this is good. And also I like to interact with the
Yeah.
state part. Okay, so we can get more work done. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right.
Help
Thank-
yourself to some star fruit or bananas.
All right, that was, we have completed item number 5. We've completed item number 6, and we are now on item number 7, Hawaii Ocean Resource Management Plan and Implementation Update. Can we take a 5-minute break?
Yes,
Yeah. I'm getting used.
and while we're taking a break, folks in the room, help yourselves to bananas and star fruit. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, from that, can I predict that you have more rainfall than some areas in West Maui?
Well, yeah, more than West Maui, but yeah, our I mean, we just had good rainfall this spring.
Yeah,
So it led
yeah.
to a good
We
production of fruit. Yeah.
But next spring,
Yeah, I know. I'm very sad about that.
after
Wow. And then we had to.
that was so much data and a lot of it is
And
scary.
then head back, so.
Okay, are we ready?
Can I introduce this one?
Yes, you indeed may.
So item number 7, the Hawaii Ocean Resources Management Plan Implementation Update will be presented by Justine Nihipali, our Coastal Zone Management Planning Program Manager, and on her staff, Sarah Chang. So Justine, do you want to go ahead? Remember, she's on our Zoom panel up here.
Thank you. I would like to introduce, actually, we've got some of our team actually. So Christy Kimura is our NOAA Coastal Management Fellow, and Lisa Webster is a project analyst as well with our office. And I believe that is Yuki Terada, who is our coordinator for our Public Advisory Council, the Marine and Coastal Zone Advocacy Council. And I'm just going to pass it over to them to provide those updates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Oh, we got their whole team there. Perfect. Okay, there you go.
Great. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let me just get our slides set up here.
We can see it.
I like that. Me too. Succession.
Okay. So thank you all for this opportunity to share with the commission some of the work that we've been doing to implement our Hawaii State Ocean Resources Management Plan, or as we'll refer to as the ORMP. So just real quick background on the ORMP for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with it. The ORMP is a statutorily mandated plan intended to resolve coastal problems and issues that are not adequately addressed by existing laws and rules. And the plan is guided by a Maukata Makai approach and includes coordinated activities amongst all the agencies that you see here listed on this slide. The most recent update was in 2020, and it focuses on 3 major issues: coastal hazards and the impacts on coastal development, reduction of land-based pollutions, and marine ecosystems, which is led by DAR with support from our CZM program. But as the lead agency, CZM's role is to coordinate with agencies for implementation of the plan to address these 3 focus areas and to review and periodically update the plan. So one of the ways that we're coordinating with agencies was through our semi-annual meetings with what we called the Council on Ocean Resources. And many of the commissioners here participate on that council. And the council played a really key role in helping with shaping the development of the 2020 plan. And now that we're more in the implementation phase, we've been coordinating with agencies primarily through our ORMP working group and our project-specific advisory teams, which we call our action teams. But we still wanted to provide feedback, provide updates to the council on the progress that we've been making. And since there's such strong overlap between who sits on our council and the commissioners for the Climate Commission, we thought this would be a nice opportunity to share those updates and not add an additional meeting to everyone's very busy schedules. So we hope to be a somewhat regular item on future Climate Commission agendas so that we can continue to provide these updates to you. So as I mentioned, there are 3 focus areas in our 2020 ORMP, but for the sake of time today, I think we're just going to focus on projects within our coastal hazards and development focus area. I will share a link to our ORMP webpage afterwards, and you can go see some of the other projects that we have going on within the other focus areas if you are so inclined. So the first project that I wanted to share is our state facilities and sea level rise initiative, which we've been working on since 2021. We completed an exposure assessment to identify state facilities located within the various Lorexa scenarios. And recently we received $400,000 to continue with the next phase of this initiative. So for those commissioners with facilities management responsibilities, we've been meeting with your staff to discuss approaches to assessing vulnerability, and we'll continue working with them as we use this funding to develop a standardized procedure and template for assessing and reporting state facility vulnerabilities. The goal is to create a statewide process that can be integrated into the CIP process and will allow for prioritization of adaptation projects within and across agencies. This regional shoreline management scoping study is a recently completed project and the first step in a larger initiative that kind of looks at opportunities for more coordinated, large scale and proactive interventions based on environmental conditions and how they interact with the natural and built environment. The final report, which is soon to be released, includes a proposed methodology of how we would define and delineate regions across the state based off a range of factors. Our next step is to do agency-to-agency outreach and technical consultations to kind of share this idea of a regional shoreline management approach and get a better understanding of how regional management would impact existing regulatory and planning processes. So we will be reaching out to many of our ORMP partners in the fall to hopefully set up some of these one-on-one consultation meetings.
And we are in the early stages of a managed retreat analysis. And this study will be looking at the implications of managed retreat through a legal and policy lens, as well as a funding and financing lens. It will also include a conceptual application of a proposed legal framework and recommended funding mechanisms to 2 case studies. The North Shore of Oahu and Kahana Sunset Condo Building F in West Maui. This project aligns with the recommendation from the 2022 5-year update to the sea level rise report to review laws and regulations that may have to be amended and adopted to facilitate retreat and moves towards making managed retreat a more viable adaptation option. We will be looking to assemble an action team of ORMP partners to advise on the project. So please let us know if there's anyone on your staff that you think would be interested in participating.
And the next project is the NOAA Coastal Management Fellow Project that focuses on connecting social vulnerability and coastal hazards. So this project's objective is to use the concept of social vulnerability to identify communities with a disproportionate risk to sea level rise and other coastal erosion hazards. And this project came about because of the discrepancies in the national mapping tools that are used to determine which communities are underserved and thus receive national funding, but these national maps don't accurately represent all these communities. So this project is being done by identifying different socioeconomic and demographic factors that can be barriers to adapting or responding to coastal hazards such as sea level rise. And then these factors were compiled into a spatial map to identify communities that are underserved. So this will help inform the future work of the CZM program to apply for funding opportunities for these communities and to inform equitable policies for coastal communities in Hawaii. The deliverables of this project is the final document summarizing the findings of the spatial analysis, and the second part is an outreach. So community profiles, which will highlight the communities that will be identified from the spatial analysis, will be included in the document to show community needs for adaptation to sea level rise. Currently, this project is in progress with the social vulnerability indicators identified, any spatial analysis that has been conducted. So moving on to the next steps would be to identify communities of priority to do outreach to, and the anticipated project completion date is July 31st, 2024. And out of curiosity, we looked at the map based on what's going on in Lahaina on Maui right now. And the photo indicates the block groups on Maui, and the darker purple is the areas or the block groups that have a higher amount of social vulnerability indicators, thus like indicating communities that are more underserved. And although these indicators are related to sea level rise, I feel like a lot of them are applicable to other climate change events because adaptation to any sort of climate change event, the barriers to those are mostly the same. Yeah, so for the block group in Lahaina, this has 10 social vulnerability indicators, which just shows many barriers that will have to be overcome for adaptation and rebuilding. And the final update we have is more just a plug for a recently launched resource. This guide to coastal adaptation strategies suitable for Hawaii's coastlines is an informational resource that identifies over 40 different adaptation strategies to coastal hazards. Each of the strategies that's highlighted has its own info card, like the screenshot here on the slide. And the info cards include information such as pros and cons, relative cost, ideal siting requirements, and potential permits that could be required. And the intent is that this resource is something that is accessible to all audiences and will help people better understand the range of available options. So I'll put the link in our Zoom chat and encourage everyone to share widely with your staff and networks. And I think that that's all our updates for today. Just wanted to say thank you, chairs, for this opportunity to present, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Commissioners, do you have any questions of Sarah and her team? Anybody online have any questions? How do I get a copy of your plan? Online?
We have one, we have a digital copy, but we can also deliver a beautiful hard copy to your office.
Could you?
There's an extra one in this.
Okay. Amy's gonna give me an extra one in her office.
Okay.
I'm a very old school. I like to touch the paper. I have a hard time with these digital ones. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh,
Thank you.
Any questions? We plan to see you on a regular basis.
Yeah, somewhat regular. We'll work with, yeah.
Oh, this is great. This is great. I mean, I appreciate having the opportunity to get, see all these resources that are available. And obviously a lot of people are working on these issues. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation and look forward to future presentations. Thank you again. I think with that being said, Leah, item number 8, coordinator update.
Yes, and you'll all be pleased to hear that I don't have much of an update. Just real quick, it would be nice if maybe we could all just take a minute to send our positive love and thoughts to our ohana in Maui and Lahaina. Thank you. I just was feeling shivers just having all of your thoughts flow through. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Just to kind of highlight, this kind of devastation that unfortunately we're just going to expect to see more of as our climate continues to heat up and change. The world has reached 1.5 degrees of Celsius increase You know, that's something that especially for Pacific Islanders, you know, that was kind of the level where we said, okay, this is how high we can go. We've already reached that a lot faster than I think we really had expected to. So, you know, the urgency is really, really there. And so I really just appreciate all the work that all you folks are doing to, you know, address this and face it head on, because I know it can be overwhelming and challenging, but it definitely is uplifting to know that all of you are working to make those positive changes. So mahalo to you. I know I've said it a couple times, but there are bananas and star fruit over here on the table. Please take them home. I'm about to go off to the continent, so I won't have a chance to eat them. So please take them. And then just our next meeting is November 9th, unless there's any major conflicts with anybody.
I don't know, Rep. Lowen, I don't know if you're in a good place or if you're still on a line. I know she was in a space that she couldn't really talk to us, but more listening. Okay.
Yeah, but we can connect. And yeah, I will send out an invitation and check in with our other legislators to hope confirm that they can also join. So as of now, November 9th, I'll let you know if anything changes as soon as possible. But mahalo nui.
No, thank you, everybody. Oh, what perfect timing. 3:00. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mahalo. Thank you.
All right. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you.